guess, and this kind of will come back in what you're talking about, for the guys like you and I and Jeff who, wanted to better ourselves and get in aviation, what advice do you have for someone who's looking to do that?
Getting into aviation or airborne law enforcement?
Public safety aviation, and probably specifically airborne law enforcement.
I'm going to steal the advice that was given to me, and that was get those reps. Most people can be taught to fly. If you think about it, like you guys know that if given enough time, like probably you could take somebody, work with them for 2 weeks and get them minimally proficient where they could go out and fly an aircraft. I mean, we'll give 16-year-olds pilot's licenses, right? So the skill of flying is not something that is just very, what's the right adjective I'm looking for here? That is unattainable to most. It requires a special skill set. Like most people can be taught that. But what most people can't be taught is that ground experience, and so I'll steal that same line. It's to get the reps starting in a patrol capacity or a ground capacity, and then get yourself into the air unit and focus on that TFO seat. You should want to go to an air unit because you want to have superpowers with doing the game on the ground. You want to be able to see in the dark, and you want to win against the bad guys. And so when you get to that air unit, focus on that TFO seat and do everything you can to become a master of your craft. In between radio calls, you should have that controller in your hand. The controller should basically never be put back into the cradle. If you're not on a call, you're getting the reps of just looking at people. You're playing that poker game from the air. And the only way that you're going to get good at it, I just had a conversation with an officer about this the other night about how as you develop your experience as a patrol officer, you start to pick up on the external factors like people's micro expressions, of like, if somebody's like shoulders are down, does that mean, what does that tell you about what's going on? And so these are all the tells. You have to be able to develop the ability to recognize those tells, and it's just only going to come from the reps. So be motivated and, get in that TFO seat. And then when you move from the TFO seat to the pilot seat, continue that learning experience. What do they say in aviation? Like a good pilot is always learning. The same thing applies. We should always be learning. How can we be better? Because if there's a theoretical 100% of effectiveness that we can get to, I think 100, it means that you're perfect, and none of it, we're humans, we're not perfect, but how high can you go? And so, I wrote an article a couple of years ago, and I hate to keep bringing up Tom Brady, but the beginning of the article was titled something like, Tom Brady doesn't eat strawberries. And, I had read an article about him and how he doesn't eat strawberries because he says that they're inflammatory. And so then what happens is that when you eat something that's inflammatory, it brings down the performance of the body, this and that. What it ended up being is he just doesn't like strawberries. But what I was thinking about was this guy is so dedicated to his craft. He's looking for every incremental percentage to be as good as possible. And so, yeah, he doesn't eat strawberries, and maybe that gives him a theoretical 0.01% of increase in performance. Well, what about the guy next to him that's eating strawberries or doing something? He now has 0.01 on him. Well, what if he puts together all these little incremental percentages and he goes from 90% to 93%? He just expanded to the 93% when 99% of us are only getting to 90. That's what sets him apart. Yeah. And that's being the master of the craft.